Good afternoon. Welcome to Lunch with League. My name is Diane McNutt, and I am co-president of League of Women Voters of San Jose, Santa Clara. We also serve the cities of Milpitas and Morgan Hill and Gilroy. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization, and our purpose is to encourage informed and active participation in government and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. We do not support or oppose any political party or candidate. Each month at Lunch with League, we host a speaker who can share information and ideas that will help broaden our understanding of issues in our community and our nation. This month, we are very pleased to welcome Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters, Shannon Bushey. Even though the 2024 election dates are months away, we're well into election frenzy. Everyone is concerned about what will happen next year as the political divide and distrust of government we're experiencing in America puts democracy to the test. At the heart of every election is the local Registrar of Voters operation, and we in Santa Clara County are privileged to have one of the best. Shannon Bushey has worked in the Registrar of Voters office for more than 27 years, and she's been instrumental in implementing several innovations that make voting more convenient and secure. Today, she's going to talk about best practices in election and security used in the ROV and why voters should feel confident that their vote is safe and being counted accurately. After her presentation, League member Barbara Marshman will pose questions sent in advance and those that you send now through chat as they occur to you. So please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to Shannon Bushey. Shannon.
Hi, thank you, Diane. Well, hello, everyone. That one part of these kind of seminars online, I do miss seeing you all in person. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And thank you for having me today. And thank you for attending to learn a little bit about a piece of security and voting integrity for Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters. I really appreciate your time. So really, I'm sure that every one of you since 2020, has read a newspaper or watched the news, and you just hear about these, numerous news stories that claim there's extensive widespread voter fraud in other parts of the country, because there is none here that is going on, and I haven't had any claims of them. But along with these claims of voter fraud, there's extensive misinformation and disinformation that are circulating, which really can confuse the voters, and they actually start believing what they're hearing. So I really think it's important for voters to know the source of their information, and they actually may need to go as far as investigating those sources to see if they can be trusted, right? A trusted source. Myself and other election administrators, we really are, continuing to face a climate of intense scrutiny and skepticism regarding election integrity and security. So one of our additional goals for the last year and a half in our county is to increase the awareness of the election security and integrity for our voters, basically more education about that, so they can understand where the information is coming from and what we do here and be educated. So today I wanted to give you just a small glimpse into the security and integrity and practices that we have here in Santa Clara County. Thank you. Give a small glimpse. This is definitely not all that we do. This is going to touch on some different topics under our security, but it will give you more like an overview of the defense in-depth strategy that we work under here in Santa Clara County. You can change the slide, please. So here at the Registrar of Voters, our mission is to protect and ensure the community's right to participate in fair, inclusive, accurate, and transparent elections. To achieve this mission in all aspects of our election processes, we follow procedures and protocols that safeguard our elections. Before, during, and after every election, we're testing our safeguards, making sure they're in place and ready to go. So we do this through various forms of like network facilities, processes, and people security. And those are the 4 categories I'm going to touch base with you today. But all of this does require a lot of collaboration, working with other jurisdictions and other county offices, which I'll explain in a little bit. So let me begin with illustrating some of the partners that we work with on election security. If you could change the slide. Thank you. So you'll see there we have federal partnerships listed first. We work with organizations such as the FBI, Homeland Security, Election Assistance Commission, and the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency. The biggest benefit that we get out of being partners with all of the federal levels is information sharing, because they're gathering information from all over the country, not just here in California, not just in Santa Clara County. So it's really good for information sharing. They give us, beneficial information that we can use. We get to talk to each other and share things that happen in our jurisdiction and experiences. They provide trainings and best practices that we can use. Part of also what they provide, like say, for example, there was a cybersecurity attack, or they can help provide us the actual IP addresses that are associated to an attack, so that our county chief information security office can actually block those IP addresses. So it's really beneficial to work with them. You'll see that we also have state partnerships. Most of you know the Secretary of State's office, which is our chief election official for the state, California, work with the DMV for their records and vital statistics, like our vital records. If someone were to pass away, there are lists that are sent to help the counties keep their voter registration rolls as clean as possible. With the Secretary of State, we have monthly meetings that they hold for all the county registrars. I actually had one this morning from 10 to 10:30. The Secretary of State's office, excuse me, provides us guidance, these meetings, areas that we can collaborate. They test and certify voting system, electronic poll book system, and other systems, among all their other responsibilities. And again, we do work with the DMV and the vital records from the state and the county to be able to update our information. It's really, really good that we get these reports, as Santa Clara County is well known to have people move in and out, or even move within the county a lot. So getting information, from our post offices, the DMV, when they go there, automatic registration, it's truly increased the registration, which is a good thing. And for our local partnerships, some of the entities that we work with, like the city police departments, the district attorney, the sheriff, our technology services, our information security office, and city clerks and the PG&E. So some of these we work year round, some of them more at election time. So we definitely work year round with, we call it TSS, Technology Services and Solutions, which is our basically IT department for the county. We actually have 2 people that are from that department that work full-time year-round with us in our office. But this office, the TSS, is just our key to security and cybersecurity and to our infrastructure of all our systems and all our pieces. They are so helpful. And then the Chief Information Security Office also assists their focus in on the cybersecurity and the security level. So they'll look at new systems that we're looking at implementing, et cetera, for security testing. So we couldn't do this without them at all, because they are the specialists. And they help with our security hygiene and just all levels of IT security for us. So that's great. The police, sheriff, and district attorney, usually we work with them more around election time. We'll have pre-meetings with the district attorney, the sheriff's office, and the 15 city police departments to get things coordinated before, so that at a phone call, I can reach someone in the sheriff or DA's office who will then work with the cities and get any service that we need, shall we say. We'll call it service if needed. PG&E, I just mentioned them as an example because most people like, why do you work with the PG&E? And like, well, we want to, especially like summer or back when there were rolling blackouts, and we want to work with them, and we give them our list of vote centers so that they don't shut the power off or do planned work on the days that we have the vote centers up and running. And then, of course, we work with organizations locally like League of Women Voters. It's always a pleasure. I've been working with you all for many, many years. It takes a village to do everything we do. So thank you for being part of our ROV family. You can change the slide. Okay, so I'm going to briefly touch on some of this topic of security networks. So vote counting system and voter registration system. So the biggest thing I want to point out about the vote counting system, it is a air gap system, meaning it is not connected to the internet. So I will have people who say, oh, someone can hack in and change all our results, you know, in our system. And it's just not true because the system isn't even connected to the internet. And then we have strict protocols for our voter registration system and who can access the system. We have networks in high security locations here, so they're outside of this ROV office. So they're in a different location, which we don't, you know, publish where these locations are, but we do take all that into consideration too to have things not physically on site. We do cyber hygiene vulnerability scans to make sure that everything is working correctly, like the firewalls are properly functioning in the system, that the internal and external system checking to track and ensure that the individual systems are also processing by themselves correctly. We have hardened networks, which are arranged by the TSS that I told you, RIT, to ensure that the system architect is all set up correctly. And then the last two, we have multiple firewalls and we do network segmentation. So like, even though the county even has firewalls to get into the county systems, even we have, you know, sub networks where, like, say our sorting machine, where we sort the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of ballots that come in, it can only talk to a certain system. It's not even connected to all of our systems. So we keep those segmented. And last on this slide, the intrusion detection system, where our system is constantly scanning and looking for suspicious activity that may be going on. You could change the slide. So next we have a little bit about our securing our facilities. So we do physical security assessments. We work with our county security office. There is a county wide office of two that do work for the security area. They help us and focus in on, you know, safety, the building setups, the parking lots, access points to, you know, our offices and to our warehouse or where the equipment is. We have security gates here. We do most of that, and then there are parts of that we work with our county security office on. We have designated high security areas also. And this is like where we keep our voting systems and our voting equipment and the tabulation rooms. Like, people don't need to go in there. So, you know, they are designated high security areas. And then when they do need to go in, we have ID badges for actually everywhere in the office, just to even get from the front lobby in, and every, you know, room and piece here on Burger Drive where we're located. So we use ID badges and access control law and logs. So, you know, we know if somebody badged in at the back door at 6 a.m. in the morning, so there's records of all this. Also, we do video surveillance. So all the points of entry that to our secure areas, the sorting, the tabulation, the vote counting, all the paths of the ballot where it goes have security camera and security coverage. So if we ever need to look back, we're able to do so if there was a reported incident. We do security and ADA assessments of the vote centers to make sure they also parking lots and have lighting and have accessible access and ramps for people to get, say they were in a wheelchair or needed assistance, into the vote centers. All visitors and observers are escorted around inside of our office or even identified at the vote centers. We started that probably about 1.5 years ago, where we give them special badges at vote centers, just like we do in our office, so that someone's inside of our office, they can be easily identified even just by looking at the badge. I mean, all of us employees have our badges, so we give the observers special badges. And one more item is the tamper evidence seals. We do seals on certain areas, you know, the kind of seal that you peel off and it will say like void on it. So you know it's been tampered with. An example of that on our voting equipment is when, say, we take a piece of equipment out to the vote centers, and there are certain screws on the outside of, say, a voting equipment piece. We'll put a seal over that to make sure it hasn't been tampered with. And even if one of those seals shows a void, like somebody had attempted to lift the seal up, that piece of equipment will be immediately removed out of the vote center and replaced with another piece of equipment. And the most common time that we have to get the machine replaced is due to one of our vote center workers who was curious, or, you know, had lifted up the seal. Even though we know it was, you know, John at a vote center, we're still going to replace that equipment. So we have our rules that we follow. So next we'll go on to security processes. We always have 2 people with ballots. We call it our 2-person rule here. Even going to pick up the ballots at the vote center, at the drop boxes. We have usually 100 drop boxes in the county for a countywide election. So we send teams of 2 to go pick up those ballots that have been dropped off by our voters. We have chain of custody protocols. Those also is like a combination of our seals, the logs, the procedures, our 2-person rule. Basically, they're all kind of redundant on top of each other. So we don't just rely on one thing. We usually have multiple ways to be able to, you know, tell something was accessed, etc. We have a paper-based digitally scanned voting system. So those of you know, if you voted by mail, you sent in, you know, your ballot, your piece of paper. And if you went to a vote center, once you vote on the ballot marking device, you're going to be printing out a piece of paper. So we always have proof. We always have a piece of paper that we can refer back to about anybody's ballot. So that is the best, one of the best parts, one of my things. We do pre-election logic and accuracy and post-election audits. Basically, we test every piece of equipment, every piece of counting machine, the ballot marking device, the electronic poll book, all of those before they go out to the vote centers. And then after the election, part of our audits and these post-election audits is, for example, 1% manual tally, where 1% of the precincts, all ballots in those precincts are pulled together and manually tallied by people to confirm that the machine counted accurately after. So the machine is tested before to make sure it's counted accurately. Then we have the election, and then we test after to make sure it was counted correctly. So it's a very good system. A vote by mail ballot security, basically we get our ballots back and they have barcodes that will relate to a voter, and then, you know, we process our vote by mail and must individually with human eyes, signature check, every single ballot that comes in an envelope. And then we'll send, if the signature doesn't match or is missing, because some people actually forget quite a lot, forget to sign, we'll send what we call a cure letter to voters who have up until 2 days before we certify to get that correct. And then we have our electronic poll book. So that is our electronic roster. Some of you actually may not have been to a vote center because you voted by mail all these years, but when we switched over to VCA in 2020, we also switched. One of the multiple pieces of equipment and systems we switched was to an electronic poll book. So instead of the paper roster where you sign in, you're actually going to give your name and they're going to look you up basically like on an iPad that has a static copy of our voter registration because nothing's not connected straight into our system. And we can tell if you, through the secure system, did you already vote? I mean, maybe you went to a vote center and a half hour later you went, down the street and went to another vote center. We can already tell on these books that you have voted or that you returned it by mail. So it provides such great access for us all. So now let me give you a few points about securing people, our last category. We do background checks on all of our temporary and permanent employees, which if I include the volunteers, I would say we hire 2,000 people every fiscal year, every countywide election, because you need the extra help that probably 400 or 500 that work here at this office, and then 1,500 that are working at the vote centers, and then some of our volunteers. For our volunteers, we also do a Megan's Law check to make sure they're not listed in the Megan's Law database. We do a lot of training on phishing, excuse me, and cybersecurity. We have county trainings that do annual trainings. We have managers who do trainings in our office. In addition to cybersecurity, staff are training on safety, elections codes, procedures, and we have like 12 divisions, and staff working in those divisions will become like specialists in their area, whether it's vote by mail, voter registration, ballot layout, candidate services. So they're all getting their individual training plus regular county training. Staff access to appropriate areas. Just kind of like I said earlier, if staff don't need to go in the ballot counting room, they don't have, even if they tried to badge in, it won't open and give them access. So we have programming to program everyone's everyone's badges, so that they're only allowed in certain areas. And then with our visitors and observers, kind of also like I mentioned about the observers that come in, but we have vendors that come in, observers. No one comes behind our front lobby office without being escorted by someone and being labeled with some kind of badge so that all staff know who this person is that come in. And again, they must all be escorted at all times. So those are some of the things we do on the people side. So for this part, I had done a presentation for another chapter of the League of Women Voters, and then was asked to do this one. And I wanted to share with you one of the things they asked because I thought you also would find it interesting. So let me go ahead and tell you first what some of our roles are at the ROV, and then what they really wanted to know was, how can we determine the low voter turnout areas in Santa Clara County? So I put together just a little bit of information about that because it probably is something that your chapter is also interested in. So for the ROV role, we are charged with conducting the elections, which we do, as you know, in a nonpartisan manner. That I'm very strongly behind that. Strong belief that we are nonpartisan. We don't talk politics. We don't care who wins or loses in this office. We just want the election to be accurate and timely. That is our priority. So to do that, we offer, language services. We offer translated materials in it's up to 14 languages, depending on if you're talking county voter information guides or actual official ballots. We offer the VCA voting model with the vote centers that contain accessible voting equipment and curbside voting at these vote centers where voters maybe can't even get out of the car. And then for some of these, we make it accessible through remote access vote by mail, RAVBM as we call it. And for those voters that maybe can't even leave their house, they're able to go online through a link that we give them an access, and they download their ballot. So no one is voting online. They are able to download the ballot, and then they can use their own assistive devices on their computer to be able to mark it and eventually print it out. But then they do mail it in to us. But we try here just to remove as many barriers as we can for people to vote. So, but with all that said, I need your help also. We do heavily rely on community help with organizations to help us reach out directly into those neighborhoods that need more education and participation. We work with CBOs, community-based organizations like you with League of Women Voters, elected officials office, but all of these partners that help us connect people, they help connect the people with our voter education material, whether it's our website, our social media posts, or flyers, information. That's how the best assistance comes from the ROV with all of these groups. Actually, not from us, but from the community organizations to help us get that education out there. So as far as, direct voter contact, I would love if I had an entire group that could go, hit the ground, boots on the ground, and get out there and go door to door for registrations and education. But it just don't have the staff to do that. So, we really do rely on groups such as yourself to help us get the word out. Basically, what we also do is like a train the trainer. We really are looking at engaging in capacity building, where we do focus in on these train the trainer sessions for topics like VCA or voter registration. I'm sure like you all do, and go out and train people how to register and how to fill out a card so that people then can go spread the word or take it to their churches or their Kiwanis club and get people registered. We attend and table about 200 to 300 outreach events a year with the very small staff that I do have to go out and do that. So we're able to get a good chunk for ourselves. We borrow staff from other divisions here to go out on the weekends when they're not working in their own division to do some of these outreach events. So it's a good collaboration inside of our office also. One of the other things that we do is extensive advertising through various media forums. This can be social media, radio, print ads, TVs, podcasts, billboards. We've used VTA buses, shopping carts, and one election, we even rented the plane to fly around the county on election day to remind people to vote. We were trying to try something new. But, we're focusing in on developing the voter education information that our community partners can share with their base to create that awareness and provide the education on the electoral process and the different voting opportunities and VCA in 11 days. So we do like toolkits of media, and we'll pick a theme and for an election and make up prepared social media posts and information. So if any of you are interested, you can contact us before elections and get copies of those. And that's what we really like to share with others in the community, so they can email it out to their members, their clients, put it in their newsletters, all kinds of things that they can share that information. At least that we try to give them something that makes it easier for them to share that information. So the next slide, please. Okay. So on the question about, how can we look at areas that have lower voter turnout? We can provide the tools to organizations that want to do that, to determine those areas, or maps that can be used to visualize where these areas are, and actually the voter contact information to reach out to the voters. Voter contact information is confidential unless it's governmental, scholarly, political, or journalistic. There's 4 reasons. So if you and on the league were doing a political, trying to register people, you could fill out our application and get access to that confidential information, which will have voters, for example, name, address, information about their precinct, where they live, but you can also get their voting history. So let's say for me, if you look my name up on this voter file, it's going to have a date for every election that I voted. And then obviously those that are missing dates for the elections, they did not go out and vote for that, at least didn't cast a ballot for that election. So that is one way to determine who goes out and votes more than others. You can take this data file that you get, and if someone knows like Excel or databases, you can sort this information in any way you would like. People sort it and do walking lists to go walk in a precinct to the houses. And we even have maps that relate to precinct walking also. But this information can really help you. It may have an email address and a phone number if they gave it to us when they registered. And I think around 40% have that. Hopefully, they could have registered 20 years ago and maybe changed their phone number and didn't let us know. But there is a lot of updated information. As soon as they give it to us, we're putting that into the system. So that's one way with the voter file. So when you're also wanting to help pick out areas of voter turnout in general, instead of focusing maybe just on the person who votes, we have statement of votes cast, as we call them. We have that on our website. Many of you go to our website results, election ENR, election night results that will come up at 8 o'clock on election night, and people will be checking back for the next 30 days where we canvass the election until we certify. And in there, there's also some maps in there with all the contests by districts, and they even go down to the voting precinct levels. And then they also sort out by vote by mail and vote centers. So this is where on the statement of vote, let's say we're in city of San Jose area, and then it'll have precinct number, which is the voting precinct, and then it will have the registration. So let's say there's 1,000 registered voters, and then it'll put the turnout, 47%. So only 47% of those 1,000 voters went out to vote. So we go through there to look for information where it's really low. Like if the average is 50% voting in an election, when you see these precincts in these areas that have 28%, 20%, why are they so much lower? And this is where you can learn and see physically, geographically, what areas of the county have lower turnouts. If somebody wanted to spend their time mailing somebody something or walking those precincts, they can learn where they should go focus their attention on. So we basically, those are the tools that we use, that we have. Of course, there are, other companies that do charge, and they can really filter, and they take data from other sources. We only have, of course, our voter registration database, but we do have this to offer for anybody who is looking to target and wanting to get out and see who's registered and not, and who's voting and not. So I hope you found that part of the information helpful in case you were wondering of how to target. So overall, I hope that was informative. Like I said, it's just a glimpse into some of the security and integrity that we do. I do want to also mention that it's probably been 2 years now, but the date's on the white paper. We did a white paper. It's about 40 pages, but it's a great single source. If you want to get a general overview of so many more things that I was able to go over, it's on our website, our integrity and security white paper. And we have great information and FAQs online also, where if you're just looking for one area, you can click on links on the screen and just go down in sub levels on certain words or topics that you would like to look into. So I highly encourage you to go look into our website and read that white paper. And it's just a pleasure to be here with you all today. And thank you for your time. But let's see about if we have any questions.
Thank you, Shannon. You sure put a lot of information in a short period of time. And I'm glad to know about that white paper, because I think it's going to be important for us to have something to reference to further digest all of the information and opportunities for us to get involved. So we are going to move now to questions. So some of the people have sent questions in advance. Some have sent them on chat while you were talking. So our league member, Barbara Marshman, is going to ask you some questions until our closing out time at 1 o'clock. So Barbara, you're on.
Thank you. And thank you, Shannon. That was a really thorough presentation. It was funny. A lot of the questions had been about security, but I think you've made it pretty clear that there's an extensive program available for that. One question though, is it harder to get volunteers these days now that all of this is a little more complicated? The length of hours required for, I think, is it still 14 hours if you're going to volunteer on election day, or is that broken down?
Okay, well, if I could go over a little bit more in volunteers, just to make sure everybody understands how it works now, because up until 2020, right, when we started VCA, like we were hiring 5,000 volunteers. Hi. We were hiring 5,000 volunteers to work one day. But then we switched to Voters Choice Act. We've got 11 days of voting. And the training got longer. And we need to hire extra help, temporary employees now. So you have to go online, you have to apply to the county, they give us the name and the list. So that's like 3/4 of who we hire for the vote centers. The other quarter will be volunteers. So that process still is, you can have a volunteer with and have a much shorter training. Like if you're working temporary, you're getting at least 3 days of training on the electronic equipment you're going to use. But we regularly fill our positions. We're hustling out there to get these temporary workers in. So actually we've just started a big hiring campaign, and if I know I can get a hold of some social media or posts or flyers, I would love to send it to you all if you could help us share it, because we've got to hire a couple thousand people, try to get them in here. So especially with the smaller number of volunteers now, we have been filling those, but we're always looking for more volunteers, because somebody might be able to work one election or two, but then they're in our database, and if they can't the third, we'll come back. So we're always looking for names, but we are, by the time of the election, we're good, but sometimes more stressful than others.
Okay. Voting by mail, does everybody now have an opportunity to be on a vote by mail list, or is that just, I think I am, but is that just parts of the county?
So every single voter in the state now gets a ballot mailed to them. So when we started VCA in 2020, BCA required every voter to get a ballot. So we were mailing to all county voters. We were already like about 79% vote by mail before we switched to VCA. So it was only made sense to go to VCA. So everyone got one. And then shortly after, the law changed and everyone in the state gets mailed a ballot. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Couple of questions that are not directly from what you talked about. One is non-citizen voting. Oakland is now exploring this for school district. San Francisco, I believe, already does it. And it's talked about from time to time here. How would that complicate your work?
Well, I have not done extensive research because we do not do non-citizen voting in Santa Clara County. But I would envision that probably, and this is again just my experience in the years and things that might need to be done. So it would complicate, I think, in some areas because you'd need like a different database because we have our registered voter database. So I would need a separate database because I can't have them all in the same database because I don't want to mail them the regular ballot. And if they're only voting on a school district per se, I can't mail them a regular ballot that has 50 contests, 10 contests on it. I need to mail them just that school district.
Right.
So it would, to me, at least be making additional ballot types and different kind of database or some form of tracking and separating them. But, of course, we would figure out a way and get that done if such thing happened in Santa Clara County.
Thank you. And a similar kind of question, ranked choice voting. The county is actually looking at that. You have put out a paper that I believe outlines a fair number of concerns about it. Can you talk, and the League of Women Voters has advocated this, by the way, this, I believe the statewide league, not specifically this one. Can you talk about generally about the complications that would bring about and how practical you think it is for us?
Okay. Well, I do want to say that I think when you say we put out a paper, we were asked, it's probably been over a year, somewhere, to bring some information to our county board of supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to stress that I wouldn't call those concerns. I would call them what we believe the monetary needs would be, the staffing, the timing of when we could put it in. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows I'm neither in favor nor against ranked choice voting.
Right.
So complications, really the research that we did for that paper, as I've heard before, but we were able more to verify. The biggest thing that comes with it, and I don't think if you call it a complication, but one of the biggest needs is education, voter education. It is going to be costly to educate voters on the new process, and but that can be done, So we would buy the module on the voting system for ranked choice voting, which we don't have. So the vendor already has a system that is able to calculate and do the voting that way. I think it's just more of, we need to explain it to everybody. I've read, just I'm sure like some of you, that different opinions, I don't have mine, but formed, but what I've read, some say it's confusing to voters, and then other studies say, oh, 98% of the voters who came out said they weren't confused. So there are others who advocate and support and oppose those areas. I've tried to gather so far the facts to bring to the board, and I'm awaiting any day that they whether it's in a month, a year, 5 years, ask for more information. Whatever policy they implement, we'll be happy to do that. So, but the main thing is going to be this education and that planning and getting the word out in multiple ways. It'll be like kind of like a mini VCA all over again, where we ask all of you and all these orgs, help us share this information and, how do you vote and how do you calculate it? Not that everybody fully wants to understand how to calculate it, but making sure they know how to vote. So, yeah.
And is that your study? Is that readily available on your website?
The board file is not on our website, but it's on the county's public website under one of the board meetings. I need to find out the date. So then it would make it easier. I mean, but I assume they have a search thing, ranked choice voting, but it would be a public document that shows we want to do it, basically a year before the primary date, like at a minimum, and we estimate this much more money, and this is all based on that time, and so yeah, they should be able to find it under the the county clerk of the board's minutes for board meetings, for minutes and legislative file agendas, the agendas. Yeah.
Thank you. There is a Bay Area organization. I think Tommy Kong is one of the founders, trying to reassure, inform people about voting integrity. Could you talk about that a little bit and what you think about it?
Sure, yes. So there are, I think, 9 of us counties. We all formed it together at the same time. Bay Area, BAE, B-A-E, we call it, Bay Area Elections. And actually our county hosts the website for that organization. We first, really came together to, we're in the Bay Area. We have a lot of media markets that we can share. We wanted to be able to also come together and talk about how do you do things? How do you do things? Share how we might advertise. We've made up new, like 1 or 2 page fact sheets about different topics, all to educate voters. That's our goal. We tried to get media interviews to spread, the news, and that voters can come to this website too, and our county sites as trusted sources. So we've been collaborating for almost 2 years doing this, I think the beginning of last year. And so far it's been great to be able to share locally what's going on with each other. So people can also get more information online, but I love it. You always want to talk with other election officials. Why even the state, like I said, pulls us all together to go over certain things on meetings. It's very beneficial.
Great. Why does it take so long to count absentee ballots? A frequent question.
Let me get my here. 5. Okay, we can try. So I know we actually do really good. So let me start with the law is 30 days after an election, and we are busy every single one of those doing audits and certification and counting ballots and everything. But like even the election code envisions everything you have to do after an election takes a long time. So we have 30 days after an election with all of our many legal requirements, and it does take that long. So as far as counting ballots, so we can by law start processing. Well, what's processing? I mean, I guess I should say, so, you get ballots that come in, they have to be run through a 40-foot sorting machine, and at the time they are scanned, and this, the signature, that side of the envelope is scanned and can come up on a computer for a staff member, and then up comes that voter's signature on their voter file. So like I said earlier, human eyes are gonna look at every single signature. It's not done by machines, it's done by us. And then once we can match the signature, it goes back in the sorting machine again, because it needs to get sorted down to like precinct level. And so we can, those processes take time, and because you want accuracy, you want to check those signatures of the voters, make sure they didn't vote already. Did they go to a vote center and vote? Now they're mailing their ballot back in, or they came in on the same day. The biggest thing that happens is also we are getting ballots at, we had 29 days of voting. We've been open in the office for 29 days, vote centers for 11 days. People like to mail their ballots in at the end. I get hundreds of thousands of ballots on one day, election day, whether they're dropped off at our vote centers or they come through the mail. Our vote center numbers or our drop boxes have about equaled now, and I think are about to overtake, if not already have, what we get in the mail from voters. These people are dropping them off on election day, the weekend before. So it's the timing of when they come in. And then by law, a lot of people aren't aware, years back, there's a postmark +7, we call it. We need to take and count, verify all ballots received 7 days after election day that have a proper, postmark and the information that's required. So I have to wait a week too to get more ballots in. Then we need to notify the voters again about the cures I told you. Oh, your signature is missing. You have till 28 days after the election to come correct it. 2 days before we certify on the 30th day after. Yeah. Over these years, we're at 90%, 88% people are voting by mail now instead of going to the vote center. So, you switch from the polling places back in the day, and just year after year after year, it's just grown into everyone returning their ballots. I feel very good about what we do, that as we're getting the bulk of those days before the election up through after the election, within a week, we usually have probably 90% of our vote by mails counted and reported. I feel really good about that. And we do, every other day updates, because some other counties, they show you election night, they post when they certify. 30 days later, I got to wait for results or, things. So we're very good about being transparent and getting those results up there. So you can see there's a process, a sort, a signature check, another sort, open and flatten, take the ballots out, flatten them out so they can run through the counting machine. And, oh, what's the voter intent on that ballot? Because they circled this one and crossed out this one and the machine can't tell. Well, send that over to adjudication so we can follow the law on voter intent. Oh, well, you can tell they crossed that out and they circled this one. There's just so many steps to making sure everything is accurate and counted correctly. So, yeah.
What are the pros and cons of eliminating polling places and going to 100% mail-in?
I would definitely, the first thing that pops in my mind is the most negative con is we need them for our voters. We need accessibility. Not everybody can vote by mail. Some people need assistive devices inside of a vote center. Some people need our languages services that we provide at vote centers. So that's my number one con about going to all mail is all of these voters out in our communities can't walk into somewhere nearby and get the help that they need. So, I would say, of course, it would be less expensive, right? Because we're paying, 1,500 people and the volunteers and 11 days and getting the vote center set up and the trucks to rent to take the equipment out, and you need more equipment. So there's all of that, but
Right,
I'd rather do all of that and be able to help that voter who needs to come in and get the help from us.
right. And you mentioned how the complications of keeping the voter rolls up to date with deaths and people moving and so on. How current are you at any given time?
As current as we can be with all of the, information that we receive. Let's see. I had a note somewhere. I wanted to read about that part. So, like I mentioned earlier, we get the vital statistics, the DMV updates, the United States Post Office updates. We even mail our election material the post office is not allowed to forward it, because we want to know, did that voter actually move? They're not at that address. And then we get a return ballot package, we'll get 25,000 returned when we mail out 1 million. And then we send a card though. Hey, are you still there? Do you still live there? Are you at this new address that you're reported to be? So we're doing constant, every day that division is working on updating and doing notices and doing maintenance. And then we, years ago started even the VoteCal. Oh, that has helped so much, which is the statewide database. So if somebody, moves into Placer County, and in this statewide database, it matches the information of us, they'll be able to cancel it here and move them over to Placer County. So there's just so many ways that we do, and it's just gotten better and better. I mean, nobody will ever be 100%. Somebody moved 2 weeks ago. Do you have it? I need a notice from the post office, or I need them to notify me, or I need to run it through our VoteCal state system. So, but I feel very confident that it is really good.
Okay. I see we have 2 minutes to go.
Oh, wow, that was quick.
Let's see, I'm just looking through the other. Are there any particular concerns in Santa Clara County about election security? Have there ever been any threats here? Have there been, poll workers harassed or anything like that we hear about in other places? Or have we been fortunate so far?
We have been fortunate. There are some minor things that will happen, but nothing like the things that I've seen and heard on the news or from other state election officials. So security is not new to us. I mean, no matter what it is or what process, we take security very seriously, physical and system wise, for years. And we've always had security measures to control access, sensitive areas to equipment, et cetera, kind of like partial things that I explained. In recent years, I have added on and augmented to add security more here at Burger Drive. And we've actually instituted for several elections now, roving security guards for our vote centers. So we'll have that department county person who does security will come and coordinate, with security guards, and we will always usually try to place some at the busiest vote centers, and we have roving ones, including our staff too. Some elections we've even had, can't remember their titles, like a clinical clinician, that maybe could help with mental services if needed on call for someone that might come to a vote center. So I feel very good and confident. We've been able to provide a safe working environment and for voters, but there are, small things that do happen time to time. But I feel so fortunate to be here in Santa Clara County and do feel concerned for my fellow colleagues in other states, but we're okay.
Well, thank you so much. It's been really interesting and enjoyable chatting with you.
Yes, thank you, Shannon. I think we could probably spend all afternoon peppering you with questions, but I know you have other meetings to go. Shannon has said that she can stay on for 5 or 10 minutes after we formally close the meeting. If anybody has any additional questions or comments that they want to make on an informal basis. So thank you again. This is great information. And we're going to follow up next month. Lunch with League in September will be on Thursday, September 21st from 12 noon to 1 p.m. on Zoom as usual. And our speaker is going to be New York Times bestselling author Eleanor Herman, talking about her book, Off With Her Head, 3,000 Years of Demonizing Women in Power. And she's known for using humor to tackle her popular history topics in her books. So we're looking forward to a program that's going to be both educational and fun. And you can go ahead and sign up for that now on our League website, which is luvsjsc.org. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at future Lunch with League programs and other League programs also. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.